Let me be blunt. The Trump administration is targeting Democrats and it's weaponizing the Department of Justice. Congresswoman LaMonica McIver is here to discuss because she is one of those targets. Welcome back to Defending Democracy. I'm Mark Elias. Let's get started. Welcome, Congresswoman McIver, to Defending Democracy.
Hey, Mark, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure for me to be on.
So I have really wanted to have you on because we hear so much about the weaponization of government, and it's something I talk a lot about. And every time I talk about it, your name comes up because you are, in my view, one of the main targets in this weaponization of government, and you are one of the great heroes in the fight for it. So I want to thank you at the outset for having the courage to do what you've done and to be on today. But let's start with sort of how you got tangled up in the Donald Trump web of retribution, vengeance, weaponization, whatever you want to call it, which is that you are doing your duty as a member of Congress, which is to conduct oversight into ICE facilities. As I understand it, this is actually a law that Congress put in place precisely because the public, people like me, don't have visibility into what is happening to people who are being detained. And so the way Congress chose to address this is by saying that members of Congress, on essentially an unannounced basis, can appear at any ICE facility which is detaining migrants and do an inspection. And that was like a bipartisan provision of the law that Republicans took advantage of, Democrats have taken advantage of, that the Trump administration has now tried to crack down on in violation of the law. And so you were basically trying to do that. So tell us a little bit about what that law is, what the center is that you were trying to visit, and why that's important.
So, absolutely right, Mark. You kind of broke it down. Congress has the ability, the right to go to any ICE detention facility. This is literally in legislation, in policy, a statutory right to go and perform oversight of these ICE detention centers. So, I was simply there just doing my job. Nothing more, nothing less. I was not there to protest. I was not there to go break people out of prison. I was there to go inspect this facility and make sure that it was up to par. Just a little bit of more history about it. This facility had opened up days before. The city had been going to this location, including the mayor of the city of Newark at the time, to go and serve Geo Group, which is the operator of this detention center, to say, hey, you're not up to par, you're not up to city code. We have the right to come in here and inspect, make sure this place is up and running. This is not a federally owned site. This is not a federal state owned site. They are supposed to abide by the city ordinances as any other business in the city. And so us members of Congress, both me, Bonnie Watson Coleman, and Rob Menendez, who have gone to oversight visits before here in New Jersey together, we decided to go to Delaney Hall to do our job, and that is when chaos literally broke out. This once again is just an example of the Trump administration trying to stop Congress, members of Congress, especially Democratic members, from doing their jobs, from showing up, from seeing what is happening in these locations that they are running. And when we got in there, to do our visit, because we ended up getting in to take a tour of this facility hours later of being, basically held back from doing so, we saw some of the issues. We saw a place not up to par to be running, not up to par to be holding detainees. Phones were not working. Kitchen looked empty. It didn't look like we didn't smell any cooked food anyway. Their elevator was broken that we got stuck on while we were there. So many numerous amounts of problems at this location, and that is the reason why we showed up there unannounced to see what was going on within these facilities. And that is our right to do so. That's why people elect us to Congress, to have oversight, and that is exactly why we were there.
Right. And it's the law. Like, this is
It's
the
the
thing
law.
everyone needs to understand. What the Congresswoman was doing was following the law, literally the law that Congress passed, that the president had signed into law. And the Trump administration is now, as I understand it, from some of your colleagues, either as a result of being embarrassed about your visit or embarrassed about other visits or just trying to hide what they're doing, they are now completely flouting the law and not even letting members of Congress conduct these visits.
Absolutely. There have been numerous since the situation happened at Delaney Hall, and we've seen other things happen with Senator Padilla and others. I mean, literally, my colleagues have been going out to these detention centers demanding to go in to have an announced, to have an unannounced visit, and literally been turned away, doors slammed on them, tear gassed, in some situations, literally so that they can keep us out, stop us from doing our job that the people have elected us to do and hide the cruelty that is going on within these locations. And so, literally saying we have to give 7 days notice to go in, we have to make an appointment, like, no, we don't have to make an appointment to go in because the law says that we can. And no matter what Trump and his administration says, you can't just change the law and say, oh, this is how you have to do it now because we put out a memo. It doesn't work like that.
Okay, so you show up to do this oversight visit, and as you said, you're with I think two other Democratic members of Congressman, Congresswoman Watson Coleman and Congressman Menendez. This facility is part of your district, right?
Correct. It's right in the heart of Newark. It's in my district.
Yeah. And along with you was also the mayor of Newark, who obviously has an interest in this because it's in his city.
Yes.
And I will characterize, what I saw. Okay. So just like from my vantage point, you had an unprovoked escalation by the federal officials. I'm not going to try to sort out what three-letter agency was who. I don't know. I'm not an expert. What was ICE and DHS and FBI or whatever. But it seemed to me that they were unhappy that you guys were going to do your job, and they thought they could intimidate you all by keeping you guys out. And they, in my view, should be held accountable for that. I mean, the individual officers or the individual officials to treat members of Congress, their elected representatives, the way they treated you in what I see in the videos, and that's all I have to go by. What I see is an effort by the Trump administration to mistreat and to treat disrespectfully and frankly worse than that they're the elected representatives. And the first thing that happens after that is they figure, all right, we're gonna weaponize this against the mayor, right? So the first thing they do is they say, let's go after Mayor Baraka, right?
Yep, that is exactly what they do. I mean, we watched this all unfold. I mean, and it's honestly kind of a scary but crazy moment for me because once again, I'm like brand new to Congress, Mark, and I'm like, I'm not used to coming from city council, being an elected official, conducting my regular job as a council member and then being in Congress. I would never thought that, personnel of the federal government would be treating us like that. I mean, it was
Right.
just unprofessional and super, crazy and
Yep.
disrespectful, but at the same time, they go and arrest the mayor in front of us, saying that he's trespassing. The mayor didn't come with us. Actually, the members were there together, but he was
Oh, I
not
see.
there with us for an oversight visit because we knew he couldn't come anyway. We already knew that from experience of going to these
Got it.
facilities before. He showed up later, which he had been coming there multiple days anyway. Prior to us coming there, he was there with his city officials to serve them another notice or just showing up for the protest or whatever, but he wasn't with us per se. We
Got it.
watched them basically say that the mayor was trespassing, and we watched a member of the Department of Homeland Security, like investigations, go and arrest the mayor after he had been welcomed onto the property, and he had already stepped outside of the property. They go and arrest him. I mean, it was like a nightmare watching, and we're like, hey, what is going on? Like, what are you guys doing? Like, matter of fact, we're here for our tour. Like, why are you here outside doing this outside of the facility? And we were inside waiting for you. Like, what's going on? So once again, like you said, Mark, they created a whole, conflict, created confusion. Definitely something that they did, those officials. And I mean, it was a lot of officials, many ICE agents covered, faces covered, guns drawn. Officials from the ICE regional office were there, members from DHS. I mean, once again, we had did this before. We'd gone to an ICE facility ran by a different private company, and we had never had this experience before. So for this to be happening at Delaney Hall, we're like, wow, what is going on?
Right.
Why is this happening to us? So definitely a scary moment and an unfortunate moment that was created by the ICE officials there and DHS.
Right. So we're going to talk more about that because my view is, and again, this is my opinion, is that this was not accidental. that they wanted to create in this instance, as they have with Senator Padilla in California, where they frankly manhandled a United States senator for the crime or for the offense of being a Democratic senator asking Christine Noem a question at a public press conference, or at a press
Mhm.
conference available to the media, I should say, where they manhandled the New York City citywide
Comptroller.
comptroller for walking out of a public courtroom with an immigrant who had just appeared there, where we have seen them attack labor leaders in other cities, where we saw the DC U.S. attorney send threatening letters to some of your colleagues. Right, this is, in my view, part of a pattern of the Trump administration to try to intimidate Democratic elected officials to not do their job, while at the same time creating on the right a permission structure and an excuse structure to say that they don't need to abide by Democratic norms because look at these Democrats who are doing these things. So that's what I think is going on. Before I ask you to respond to that, but what happens is ultimately the U.S. attorney in New Jersey winds up bringing federal charges against you, winds up arresting you and indicting you in what I think is just, and I apologize to, I don't usually swear in front of members of Congress, what is a bullshit case, a bullshit indictment, an absolute travesty, and a misuse of the grand jury system, a misuse of the law enforcement system to target their political enemies. That's what happens next, right?
Correct. Yeah. I mean, once again, you nailed it. It is, first of all, and don't feel bad about the bullshit comment. I'm with you on that, Mark. At the end of the day, it is some bullshit, but at the same time, it's serious bullshit, right? This lady has now charged me, the Trump administration, who has weaponized the entire Department of Justice, the department on his people that he doesn't like, that folks that disagree with him, that hold him accountable, and I'm just a victim of that. And now I'm facing these three federal counts charges against me for doing my job, for showing up, for just trying to have oversight. A day that I thought was going to be a simple work day of doing what the people of New Jersey 10th elected me to do. And these charges are real. I tell people all the time, I'm unapologetic about serving the people of the 10th. I would show up again. I would go and make sure that I'm doing my job that the people have elected me to do. But at the same time, it's stressful, right? I'm a wife, I'm a mother. My mother is worried to death because she's like, what the hell, is going on? But at the same time, this is this administration. They want to bully you. They want to intimidate you. They want you to bow down. They want you to back down. That is what, this administration is all about. Everything that they do, Mark, everything is based in cruelty. They are cruel individuals. And the law, Trump being, big on law, and he's big on law enforcement. He's only big on law enforcement against the people that he does not like and he does not support. If it's his friends and his buddies, uh, what law, or his supporters, what law, that he doesn't believe in that. And so that is currently, what I am dealing with right now. And we feel confident. I'm looking forward to my day in court, me and my legal team to get in there because the facts are on my side. I was there to do my job. And that is just the point blank period of that.
I agree with you, by the way. My criticism of the legal system right now boils into two categories, and one of them, I hope does not play out in your case. The first is obviously I've been disgusted by big law firms bowing down to Donald Trump, and that is a whole other thing we could talk about. But the second is I have repeatedly called on judges, federal judges, to stop with the presumption of regularity. Right, there is a presumption in our system, and everybody needs to understand that this is like you're watching the real life victim of this. Okay, so if you've heard me talk about this before, everyone, this is why I talk about it. There is a presumption of regularity in our system. What does that mean? That means that the courts have long said that we assume that the federal government, if they are doing something, they have a good reason. That if a prosecutor says, look, there's predication to investigate here, that, like it's not an irrebuttable presumption, but judges, when the government walks in the courtroom, the judges assume that the prosecutor is telling them the truth, that the prosecutor is saying, that if the worst of the worst are being shipped to to El Salvador, it is because that is probably true. That if a federal prosecutor says, "Look, we have to bring this case for this reason," that it is probably true. That this presumption that the government is by and large on the up and up, that this presumption of regularity, in my view, and I've written about this for Democracy Docket, I have written about it I've mentioned you in this context, but others, that this is going to be the downfall of democracy. That if federal judges continue to treat these cases as if they are normal cases, right? Not regardless of whether presumption of innocence or not presumption of innocence in trials and all of that. If they just keep treating this on the up and up, you're going to have a lot of people who are victimized by this process. So yes, I have every confidence that at the end of the day, the charges will be dismissed, or you'll be acquitted, or whatever it is. But the legal system shouldn't make you go through that. like we need judges to recognize that this is not a normal system, that this is not normal, and we need them to act more expeditiously. So tell us a little bit about where your case stands right now.
Yeah, so I mean, I agree. I'm obviously going through a lot, right? I have to have this legal team, and it's not cheap, Mark.
Nope.
Like, and no one's paying for this for me. I have to literally go and raise dollars for my legal defense. I'm not a millionaire. I'm not one of those members of Congress who have millions of dollars stashed away, or I'm stock trading. Not me. At the
Right.
end of the day, so this is expensive battle. To stand up for democracy, it's expensive. Right now, my case, it's a trial set for November 10th, and we are, once again, looking forward to going to trial. I went to court about a month ago and pleaded not guilty, had to run from Washington, D.C., go to New Jersey, plead not guilty, and literally run out of the courtroom, Mark, and get back on a plane to get back to Washington, D.C. to vote. Because another thing, I don't want this interfering in the job that the people have elected me to do. Like, they're literally using taxpayer dollars against me, the very folks who have elected me to charge me for doing my job. And so, that is where we're at right now. We are, pushing forward. My legal team is pushing forward for November. And so, that's currently what's going on with this case, with my case anyway.
Look, I know it is very difficult. I'm a practicing lawyer, as people know. This is like you. I do this in between actually my day job, which is, litigating cases, and I've litigated a number of criminal cases. In fact, the very first criminal trial I was involved in was in the Newark courthouse.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, before Judge Lifland, who is now retired but was a federal judge there. But the so and I know that from that experience that it is very hard to get indictments dismissed, and that that is always a long shot. But boy, if there was ever a time and ever a case in which we just not can we the federal judges need to be realistic about what is going on in cases like this, and not put people like you through the ordeal of trials under these circumstances. But let me add one other piece of this sort of twisted puzzle by the Trump administration that I think is worth making sure people are aware of, which is that the U.S. attorney in New Jersey is none other than one of Donald Trump's criminal defense lawyers, and a woman who is loyal to Donald Trump in ways that, like, even would make Pam Bondi blush. Alina Habba is the former parking garage lawyer turned Trump sycophant, and then the acting U.S. attorney in New Jersey. She's having her own fight now with her own battle now with the judges in New Jersey who don't think she's qualified to have the job. Like they actually said, no, you don't get to keep this job because we think it ought to be someone who is more of a career, or someone who's at least have experience in this arena. Can you tell us the latest of what's going on with that? Not even with respect to your case, but just in general, what's going on with the U.S. Attorney's Office, which is the office everyone should know that is prosecuting this case.
Yeah, so I mean, you said it. This is a woman who is indeed extremely loyal to Donald Trump, would do anything, bow down, worship this man. And so she obviously has been put here in New Jersey as our U.S. attorney. She went through a period of her time expiring as acting. I know that the administration submitted her name for nomination, which both of our senators, both Senator Kim and Booker, was like, no, thank you. Like, this is not the typical process. We do not think that this person is qualified for this job, and we will not be, moving forward with of entertaining the nomination
Can we be
for
honest?
her.
It's insane that she would be the U.S. attorney. I mean, like saying she's not qualified is like kind of like understating the matter.
So, they went like Trump does, the Trump administration, they wiggle their way around, broke norms, broke rules, and decided to put her back in there. They fired the attorney that was appointed by the judges. The judges had, this is a part of their process, their statutory process, to have a vote to vote on someone if this person who is acting does not make the cut for whatever reason. They went, about appointed this woman, and then the DOJ decided that they would fire the woman. They fired her. This was a career prosecutor who had been inside of this office for a couple of years, as far as I understand, and it seemed like they had a lot of experience to serve. But Trump administration, she's not a loyalist to us, so got to get rid of her. So they got rid of her and put Haba back there. I know that there's been a lot of articles that I've been reading and cases coming forward to basically challenge a lot of people who've been charged by the U.S. Attorney's Office to challenge their charges, right? Their indictment, saying, look, you have an active U.S. attorney who is there who is not qualified, who was not officially, appointed to this seat or officially sworn into this seat. And so there's a lot of legal stuff going back and forth. We are pushing forward with our case. We're not kind of getting hemmed up in that, because at the end of the day, I was there to do my job, and I'm being weaponized. The DOJ is weaponizing, their department and their resources and everything against me for doing so. And so, we're pushing forward. We're not going to be putting in dismissals for that sake, of the situation with Haba's matter. That'll play itself out. I'm really highly focused on getting this case, trialed, getting through this so that I can really get back, Mark, to focusing on all of the other issues as well, which, I'm a part of that now. My situation is a part of that. But at the same time, like the folks that I represent, they have real issues. Our country is at a sad time right now. It's a sad time for America. Democracy is being stripped away from us every second of the day underneath this administration. And so it's way bigger than me, while I'm on the front line of this, it's bigger than me. Because I mean, once we get too far into this thing, Mark, getting back from this is going to be a challenge.
I agree, and it is bigger than you, but you are at the forefront of the people who he's targeting. And, people ask me all the time, like, how does it feel that Donald Trump has issued executive orders targeting me? He's issued presidential memorandums targeting me, or the executive order targeting my former law firm, but mentioning me. And he gave a speech to the Department of Justice in which he said that I was a bad person. And I think he called me a
Sad,
communist
yeah.
destroying the country,
It's
whatever
actually
it is. And
untrue.
people ask me what that's like. And
Yeah.
I tell them, like, it's unsettling, but like
Yes.
you have to press forward for democracy. But you are really the most uh, obvious, high profile example of someone who is having the Trump administration for in my view, political reasons. They are trying to show that they can back down a democratically elected member of Congress from doing her job. Because I used to say this about the Republicans in the Senate. I think the reason why he led with Pete Hegseth and RFK Jr. And Tulsi Gabbard is that he knew that once he made the Republicans in the Senate vote to confirm them, they will have lost all dignity and he can have his way with them forever. I think that they are pressing this case forward against you, because if they can show that they can prosecute a Democratic member of Congress for doing her statutory job, the thing that literally the law says she has the power to do in her home city or in the city that she represents, if they can do that, then they figure the rest of it, what they've done to Padilla, what they did to Lander, what they're doing to others, like, it becomes that much easier. So my
Yeah.
question to you is, do you feel like you're getting the support and the public outrage that you deserve. I mean, I am like 100% supportive, and I am, as you could tell, completely outraged. But I
Yeah.
don't necessarily feel like this is as top of mind as it should be. Do you feel like you're getting that groundswell of support from your colleagues, from your constituents, or do you think there needs to be more, like I do?
Yeah, well, I think that my constituents, first of all, to all of my constituents and my colleagues, they've been, and everyone, honestly, have been extremely supportive to me. I want to thank them. I always, any platform I get an opportunity to, I want to thank them for their support, because support goes a long way in this battle. I think more people should be outraged. I think more people should be engaged of what is happening, because just like you said, Mark, if they can get away with doing this to me, they can do it to anyone, and they will do it to anyone. They will do whatever they want to do. In many cases, they are doing whatever they want to do in certain lanes that they're in. But more folks need to be outraged about what is happening. Like when a member of Congress that have been elected by thousands of people in the district cannot show up to do their oversight job, literally being bullied, intimidated, and charged. Mark, like charged, facing 17 years. Like the judge is reading 17 years to me when I have no criminal background. I've never been in trouble with the law ever in my life. And I was there to do my job. Like folks should like be opening their eyes and ears saying, what the hell is going on in America? Like this doesn't even look like America. Like our democracy, like I mean, what is happening here? And so I do think more people should be outraged and very worried. I'm very worried. It keeps me up at night, Mark, where I see people's due process being violated. I mean, thankfully, I can get a court date, like, right? I can get a lawyer. I can go to court. There are many people who are like literally the administration's tossing their due process and their rights out the window, and they're not even thinking twice about it. So at the end of the day, folks should be more outraged about what is happening for sure.
Do you? I'm not going to ask you to reveal who, but do any of your Republican colleagues realize that what's happening is wrong? Like, do any of
Uh,
them have any humanity that they, like, come up to you and say, "Look, I'm not going to say this publicly, but just so you know, this is like, have you gotten any expressions of sympathy
Not
or?"
one expression from any Republican that I serve with. There was an article that came out from some Republicans that basically came out in USA Today, I think, saying that this was awful, this is outrageous, what is happening to, Representative LaMonica McIver. But to the colleagues that I currently serve with, I've heard nothing. It actually kind of breaks my heart to know that they are so knee deep into this situation and scared to death of this president that they've literally sold their soul and their commitments and their oaths to the people that they serve. They will not speak up to save their lives, Mark. I mean not one person, if they do speak up, they're like, hey, I disagree, and I'm retiring. Like, I mean, it's like the Republican Party is not even a Republican Party anymore. It's the MAGA Party. Like, the old time Republicans, the folks that we've been used to of the world, they're gone. Like, these folks are at service to Donald Trump and all of the people around him. And that's just the bottom line to it. And they will not budge.
Yeah, I think it was Congressman Swalwell who was the first one to say to me, and this was before Lisa Murkowski gave her remarks. I asked him, why do you think Republicans in the House are so obsequious? And he said because they're afraid. He's like, and I'm like, they're afraid they're going to lose their elections. He said, no, they're like physically afraid. They're afraid of that they're going to that like that Donald Trump supporters or the Trump administration, like it's physical fear.
Yeah.
And I mean, I actually, my reaction to that, as it was when Lisa Murkowski sort of said basically that she was scared, is I have like no sympathy for that. I mean, like then like get out of politics. Like ultimately, if you're not willing to do the right thing
Leave.
because you're
Yeah.
afraid of the president of your own party, then like honestly, you're like in the wrong profession.
Yeah.
And so I have no sympathy for it.
Yeah.
But it
When
is a
thousands, yeah,
terrible.
yeah, it's horrible when thousands of people lives are in your hand. Like, right? I mean, literally every day you represent thousands of people. You have to have the courage. You have to have the political courage to stand up for them, even when it means standing up against the tallest of tallest giants. So I don't, it's like point five of me feels bad, but then point five of me doesn't feel bad, because this is what we sign up for, Mark. This is why we get elected, to serve the people. And if you don't have their best interests at heart over whoever the president is, right? What are you doing here? Like, please exit left, because we are in a crisis right now and we do not have time for you to be scared in this moment.
I'll be right back with more of my important conversation with Representative McIver in a moment. But, I founded Democracy Docket in 2020 to cover voting rights and free and fair elections and to be prepared for exactly moments like this. The Trump administration has turned the Department of Justice into a political weapon to go after its political opponents. And the Democracy Docket team is growing to meet this moment. It now has more than 20 full-time employees. Support their work by becoming a premium member now at the link above or in the description below. So let's talk about where we go from here. So one of the things that I try to do with these interviews in this podcast is try to create a culture of bravery. I mean, you're incredibly brave. You are right now, fighting against the criminal justice, the criminal justice system under Donald Trump. Pam Bondi, Alina Habba. Like you're the White House. Like you're taking that on. You're also doing it in a political context in which every day Republicans are, I am sure, saying the most outrageous and horrific things about you that are on top of that. Plus, we're heading towards the 2026 midterms, and you have a day job where the federal government may not be kept open. Like you got a lot. You're sort of tackling this on all fronts. What I see out there is too much accommodation, too much cowardice. I see institutions that are not half as brave as you are. I see some politicians on the Democratic side that are not half as brave as you are. What do you do? What is your message for other Democrats, whether they are in politics or are their constituents or they're in NGOs? Like, what's your message for them about that about what they should be doing?
Yeah. So, look, the one thing that keeps me going, that gives me the courage that I need to keep pushing is my why, right? My why am I here? Who am I here for? The folks that I serve, the America that I'm here because I love our democracy, our freedoms, all of those things, no matter what side of the aisle you're on, whether you're Republican, Democrat, or unaffiliated, remember why we're here in America, why we love America so much. And to me, I think that's what should drive people scared to death. Like why you should be scared to death of a Trump administration and what is happening each and every day under this administration. I say to other leaders, your why is the people that you're serving, and that should be your purpose and your passion each and every day. And that's what helps me to keep going, Mark. What helps me to get up, to keep fighting, to keep pushing back, to not be quiet because they've decided to charge me and try to shut me up or stop me from doing the job of the people that I serve. There are people in my district that are going to live or die because of the decisions that Donald Trump is making, and that disappoints me. That hurts me. That fuels me to keep fighting for them because these are people who can't fight for themselves. I have to fight for the people who knock on my door and the people who don't. And so at the end of the day, that is why I keep pushing and keep doing what I'm doing. And I give that message and hopefully that inspiration to us all, no matter if we're elected or not, to keep standing up to this administration and keep fighting for the very freedoms that we love about our country before we keep blinking, going to sleep at night and wake up and notice that this is not the same place that we thought we were in or that we
So
used
I
to
want to
be in.
also connect your situation to something that is very much in the news right now, which is the situation in Texas, where
Yes.
you have Donald Trump again telling the governor of Texas to re-gerrymander. They've already gerrymandered the state. Let's be clear, everyone. The map that is in place today, the map that Democrats are simply trying to keep in place, is already an illegal gerrymander that discriminates against minority voters. It is already a gerrymander that was put in place to dilute Hispanic and Black voting power. It was already a map put in place to benefit Republicans. Okay, so but it was enough for Donald Trump. He told them to re-gerrymander anyway. The Democratic a large number or a number of the Democrats in the state legislature have left the state to break quorum, which is permissible under Texas law. They have a more than a majority vote required to conduct business. They need 100 members of legislature present. And what do we see them doing? What is the first thing we see Republicans doing? They're issuing arrest warrants. They're claiming these people need to be arrested. They're claiming that they need to be prosecuted, right?
Yep.
They need to be stripped of their office. Um, do you see the through line that I do between what's happening to you and what's happening in Texas, where this misuse of government, the threats of criminal prosecution, is being used to even, to in your case, to prevent you from doing oversight here, to literally criminalize the legislative process?
Correct. Absolutely. Once again, they're having their state government or criminal justice system weaponized against them, and asking Donald Trump and the FBI to help with
Right.
it.
That's
Once
right.
again, weaponizing these agencies, taxpayer dollars, to go after these elected officials who have decided to not grant them, quorum to basically go and be more racist and, have their way and win the 2026 election. It is just disgusting to see this happening, and for this governor to agree to this. It's like the same way when Donald Trump called Georgia and told him to go find,
That's right.
this amount of votes for him so he can win. Well, he's doing the same thing in Texas, just in a van, so that he can continue to have control over the House. I mean, how disgusting, taking away the ability for people to vote for who they want to vote for by just saying who you're going to vote for. Like, we're going to get rid of these seats. And and even Abbott was on a show last night talking about, California, if they decide to go, redistricting and add more seats, he can do this and he can do that. I mean, what are we talking about here? Like, I mean, are you do they hear, does the governor hear himself in Texas? Like, basically, they're gonna, corrupt the system as much as they want. It's honestly just, it's unreal. It's disgusting. It hurts my like gut to even watch this happening.
So as we are recording this, we've also gotten news out of the District of Columbia. You are from New Jersey, but you represent actually a couple of very significant cities in New Jersey, where we worry about what the federal government might do, and I'm sure you do. But you also serve in Congress in the District of Columbia, and so you're quite aware of the president's effort here to displace home rule, to
Yep.
take over the local police, to also deploy the National Guard, threats that he is making, and reports that he might expand this to other cities. We've already seen it in LA
Correct.
with the
Yeah.
deployment of the National Guard and the active military. Reports, the Washington Post reporting that there might be efforts to broaden the use of military in other cities, and calls, frankly, by Republicans to take this tactic to other cities like, I suspect, Newark, Jersey City, and
Mhm.
others. Talk a little bit about that situation from your vantage point, both what you see in DC and any concerns you have about your constituents in the cities you represent.
Yeah, I'm very concerned. It's very disappointing. This is another example of the president using his executive power to the limit of no limits, and it's problematic. It keeps me worried because I'm always thinking all the time that the actions that this administration and this president is taking will start a civil war. In some of these cities, in some of these locations, and that's highly concerning for me. I think there's an ultimate agenda of this administration to do these types of things, right? Sick the military on the very people that they're supposed to be protecting in these cities, and then expect a certain response so that it can escalate.
That's right.
I actually believe that that's what the president hopes for. When he says, oh, it's Liberation Day and all of these things, those are, ways of him saying, oh, it's white power. It's what I want to do. Those are racist remarks. His number one targets are cities that are led by Black mayors.
That's right.
His number one targets are
That's
cities that
right.
are sanctuary cities, that support immigration. These are the things that we're seeing, and not just using the military or the DOJ. He does this with many other departments. Mark, like for example, I sit on small business committee. He's threatened to take small business offices, administration offices out of sanctuary cities and not support those businesses. These are the things, the cruelty of this administration and this president, who, quite frankly, is a bigot. And he continues to do these things and show us each and every day how much of a bigot he is. And this is just an example of what is happening in Washington, D.C. The data supports crime is down. The mayor has said this over and over again, and we know through data and the work that many of us have done on the local level that adding more policing or authority in the streets doesn't stop crime. Look at what the inner picture is here. Like, what is going on? You're talking about juvenile crime in Washington, D.C. What can you do strategically to change that versus just sicking the military on the residents there and scaring the death out of them? They don't deserve that. No American city deserves that. And it's crazy that this is even happening.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I mean, we saw it in LA, what you said, which it appeared that they essentially manufactured out of thin air, out of nothing, a riots that didn't exist, threats that didn't exist, simply to provoke images of conflict. And I work in Washington D.C., and the mayor and the police chief have a very complicated job for sure, like all big city mayors and police chiefs do, but they have done an excellent job responding to that. And this
Absolutely.
what is going on there is simply meant to provoke. And I suspect that if I were, and I'm not an expert in Newark, but if I looked at what Mayor Baraka is doing, like the interjecting of Donald Trump's administration would not aid things. So I want to ask you um, one last question. It's a little bit of a personal question, but I think it's important. So, look, you're facing, as you said, you're facing a Department of Justice with unlimited resources. Okay, like they functionally have the resources of the federal government. You don't. You are facing a Department of Justice that is weaponized in a way that we have never seen before. I mean, it was a perceived scandal when when Bill Clinton, the former president, ran into the attorney general on not physically ran into, but saw the Loretta Lynch, the then attorney general, on the tarmac and said hello. Now we have a attorney general who hangs out at the White House, hangs
Yeah.
out with Donald Trump, and those are scary things. I mean, those are scary things. What keeps you going? Like, why aren't you cowering in fear? Why aren't you keeping a lower profile? Why aren't you, doing the thing that he wants you to do, which is just capitulating? Like capitulations in vogue, Congresswoman. Like, why? What keeps you going in the face of all of that?
Yeah, the number one thing, as I mentioned before, Mark, is the people that I represent. Like, when I started in public office, working in politics at the age of 10, I learned the love of community, and the reason why you have to love your neighbor. Be involved in civics, and fight for democracy at a very early age. So Trump. And no person that he appoints is going to intimidate me out of doing the job for the 744,000 plus people that I represent in New Jersey's least wealthiest district. They're not going to see me fold. And so that is the number one thing that keeps me going. It's my why, it's my purpose, it's why I wake up and I keep pushing and keep going. I do it for my 9-year old daughter, Mark. I do it for your children, for other folks' children, for your grandchildren, for their grandchildren, because if I can imagine leaving a world like this today, like in the Donald Trump sector for my daughter, for my 9-year old. Like, hell no. I cannot live with that. My 9-year old at this point has least protections than my mother had. We are being pushed back before 1965 on civil rights in this country. And I cannot leave a world like that or feel comfortable not fighting each and every day with a world like this right now.
Well, you are a hero of mine and of everyone I'm sure who's watching this. You have enormous courage, and I want you to know that you have everyone's support. I rarely use this podcast to raise money. I usually figure politicians can raise their own campaign money. They don't need my podcast to do that. I make occasional exceptions. I made an exception for Allison Riggs, the Supreme Court justice, where they were trying to steal her seat. I made an exception um, for the occasional cause here and there where I think it is important, but there is none more important than this. You mentioned you are not a millionaire and that you have to raise money for your legal fees. And everyone should know, by the way, the Congresswoman didn't ask me to do this. And in fact, she didn't know I was about to do this. Like I said, I jealously guard not turning my platform into a fundraising vehicle. But I think it's really important here. I think that everyone needs to recognize that you, like I said, are up against a Department of Justice with unlimited resources. And in order to put on a legal defense that will not just make sure you have a fair trial, but also will show the Trump administration that they cannot bludgeon our Democratic heroes into submission. You need the resources. So, Congresswoman, I know you are in your district office. And as I mentioned, I didn't actually coordinate this with you in advance. So you're probably not going to be in a position to tell people where they can give, but I can tell people where they can give because I'm not a member of Congress. I'm not in the district office. So I'm putting that in the description of this episode. And I will also be sharing that out on my social media platform. So everyone, please look out for that. And this is a very, very important cause to me personally and to anyone who cares about democracy. Congresswoman McIver, I oftentimes say that when this era is over and it is past, your children and your grandchildren are going to ask you what you did. And they're not going to care how you felt. They're going to care what you did. And you will be able to tell them everything you did in this time of trouble to stand up for democracy. For that, like I said, you are a hero. You have enormous courage and you have my admiration. And I hope when this is over, you will agree to come back to this podcast and we can talk about the future fights. But in the meantime, best of luck and thank you for joining me today.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mark. It's been a pleasure to be on with you, and I will most definitely be back.
Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of Defending Democracy. Please make sure you're subscribed to Democracy Docket's newsletters to stay informed on the latest voting rights and democracy news.